Hey guys, it's Alicia back, and I just wanted to touch base today to let you all know how we're making out with our natural frozen embryo transfer cycle. So, first thing I want to say is that I continue to refer to a natural FET protocol as a ovulatory FET protocol. And that's because that's the medical terminology for it. I choose to use that because I have seen a lot of folks asking questions such as, why do I need to take medication for a natural FET protocol? And when we stop calling it that and we call it the medical term ovulatory cycle, the medication starts to make a lot more sense. We are currently on cycle date 15. We are transferring tomorrow on cycle day 16. Compared to our last medicated cycle, this has just been a dream so far. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. And I'll get into the details and my measurements and medication and all of that stuff. But I do just want to take a second to talk about why your RE might not recommend an ovulatory cycle for you and why they might prefer the medicated cycle. So, the kind of qualifiers that I'm aware of are this. So, firstly, you need to be a person who has regular periods, and those periods need to fall within the window of normal. So, I believe that's anywhere from like 21 to 36 or 38 days. I'm not an expert on this because that's not really an issue for me. But that's like kind of number one. Number two is you need to be a person who ovulates naturally and regularly. The other item is your body needs to be capable of producing a sufficiently thick and well-structured lining. I know that a big challenge for a lot of people in terms of fertility is the ability to achieve lining thickness. And so kind of like the standard is a minimum of 7 millimeters and like higher. And then of course, there's not just thickness, we're thinking about structure of lining. So anyhow, those are sort of the essential qualifiers that I'm aware of when it comes to an ovulatory cycle. Just on a final note too, with my conversation with my RE after our last sort of very challenging medicated FET, it wasn't for nothing, because the difficulties I experienced actually provided data specific to my body and how it operates that really made my RE confident that a natural or an ovulatory FET would work for us. And number one reason being this: if y'all recall from my previous videos, during down regulation with Lupron, my body was fighting back. And so we actually needed to, I needed to be on the Lupron for a longer than average period of time and on a double dose. And if you haven't been on Lupron before, that one's a kicker. It's a really difficult medication to be on, and then to have to be on it longer and double the dose, that just was really challenging for me. But the fact that my body was sort of not wanting to downregulate told my RE that I would be a good candidate for a natural cycle. So next thing I'm going to do is talk about how a natural cycle works. All of this, for the record, folks, is to the best of my knowledge. I'm no expert. I'm not a specialist. I've just been around the block in the IVF community, and I ask my RE and my nurses tons of questions. When the woman ovulates, this actually triggers the body to begin producing a series of hormones that prepare that uterine lining and prepare the body for a potential pregnancy. And the point of an ovulatory cycle is that we want to lean into that natural development of hormones and kind of help out what is already naturally occurring, so that we just have the best kind of case scenario going into transfer. So this is why, although it's people refer to this as a natural cycle, this is why you still take medication. It's just supporting the body's natural functions. So as I called in my cycle day 1 to my clinic, on a kind of standard timeline, which we all know are just suggestions, typically you would call in your day 1 and you would go in for a baseline blood work and ultrasound on your day 3. And then you would begin cycle monitoring. I don't know if it's blood work and ultrasound for everyone, but it was for me. But you would begin that on cycle day 10. And what we're looking for is the LH surge, which is the sign that you're about to ovulate. So in my particular case, I called in my cycle day 1, and I have shorter cycles. So this one was like especially short, but yeah, so I called in my cycle day 1, and that particular cycle was 24 days. So pretty short, but still within the realm of norm, like just. And so due to the fact that I monitor at a satellite clinic and they're not open 7 days a week, I actually went in for my baseline on cycle day 5. So considering my short cycle and that I was late to baseline by a couple of days, I went in for blood work and ultrasound. And I'll tell you that during the ultrasound, the technician actually called in the nurse just as like a double check, because by cycle day 5, I was already growing on the right side 2 measurable follicles. And in addition to that, my uterine lining thickness was slightly over 5 millimeters. And that's cycle day 5, guys. So you can see why the nurse and technician were sort of like, let's double check this. So I got a call from my clinic that day, and they wanted me to start the baby aspirin or the ASA actually on my cycle day 5. So in actuality, I never got like an official like baseline. My body was already rocking and rolling by the time I got in. So that is actually a very positive thing. So from there, I was instructed to start my baby aspirin and then return to the clinic on cycle day 8. So I go into the clinic on cycle day 8, and again, we're doing blood work and ultrasound. And at this point, I have like 1 follicle. So there were 2 measurable. One had kind of receded so the other could grow. And I had 1 follicle. It was measuring 15.1 millimeters. And my uterine lining was 7.5 millimeters. So, of course, I leave the clinic and we're waiting on the results for the blood work. But it was already suspected that likely my LH surge would be there. So yeah, I got my call, cycle day 8, and my doctor had looked at the results and had suspected an LH surge, and also said that I would not require further ultrasound because of the thickness of the lining. It 7.5, like the minimum for transfer is a 7 millimeter lining. Like typically every doctor is a bit different, but considering on day 8 I was already 7.5, he was really confident about the lining. So I got that phone call, and then I was told to go back in for monitoring the following day, so cycle day 9, and that was only blood work, and it was just to confirm the LH surge. So just doing like a number comparison there. And then I got my call, and yes, I had in fact ovulated on day 9, which meant I would take the HCG trigger shot. I took a photo of it. I'll just include that up here. It has like the details of my dosage and everything there. Now, if I'm going to ovulate anyway, why do we take this medication? The point is that in some rare cases, even though we have like a nice measurable follicle that should have a mature egg there might just be a little hiccup in the system and that egg may not release. So that's the reason for the trigger shot, is to ensure that that's what it does, is it opens the follicle and makes sure you ovulate, and that all of that natural process that your body does after ovulation can begin. I did start my progesterone in oil on the following Monday, and that was what cycle? It was cycle day 11 that I started that. So as of today, I've had 5 injections. And again, why are we taking medication for a natural cycle? Well, it's an ovulatory cycle. So the reason for the progesterone in oil is, yes, it does help to thicken the uterine lining. But the other thing it does is it helps to provide proper structure of that uterine lining to give you the best chance for implantation. So that's why I'm taking progesterone in oil. And yeah, so I've been on it for 5 days, and our transfer is scheduled for tomorrow we're going to be at the clinic for 9:15 and then transferring by 9:45. So we're really excited. And again, based on the numbers that we're working with, and that some time has gone by, so that lining could only be thicker. We're feeling really positive about this, and I'll tell you, my body is just a lot happier using this process. Oh, the other thing I want to mention is, so I will not deny this, I'm pretty sure every clinic tells you after an embryo transfer, do not take at-home pregnancy tests before your beta is scheduled. I have seen, some couples share their story and they have that ability to wait. I'm not one of those people, typically. And so this should be interesting for me because I took the 10,000 unit, or however it's meant, like the highest dose of trigger shot. It actually will not technically be out of my body until, 7 days post transfer. Basically, the point of which the trigger shot is going to be out of my system is kind of around the point where I break and take a home pregnancy test. And at this point, I really won't know the difference between the trigger shot and an actual pregnancy, because they will literally line up for when I could possibly test positive. After our last failed transfer, I had a very loving family member give me a gift. There were 2 pieces to it, and one of them is this. Now it's daytime, so I don't know if you can see this really well, but it was sent with a card that basically shared with me that this particular family member had been through a rather difficult time, and on their journey through that difficult time, back to a positive space, they were gifted some items to bring positivity and love their way. So this is a little jar of fairy lights, and I was specifically instructed to go ahead and turn them on when we officially reach that point, and here they are. They're on. This is really sentimental to me. I've been waiting to turn these on for a few months, and I wasn't sure when that would happen for us. So here it is. They're on. I'm thankful for the love, and fingers crossed that we have a successful transfer. So thank you everybody for watching. I hope that this was helpful to somebody out there. That's really my objective of sharing my stories. So I just want to wish lots of love and support to all of you folks out there. I hope that you all, keep your fingers crossed for us with this transfer. And I so look forward to touching base again when we have our results. So best to everyone.